Hi everyone, today let's talk about the Apple VR headset, then we'll look at the economic calendar, then we'll take a look at Max Payne, then we'll take a look at the charts, then we'll look at my results for the day and my thoughts going into tomorrow's session. If you like trading stocks and options and making money, definitely like and subscribe. I make videos like this every single day that the markets are open as well as Sundays, so make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Welcome to the Portfolio Bulletin. Let's get started. So Apple announced their VR headset finally, and it is $3,500, so it's absolutely not cheap, but it is their first new product since 2014, so everyone's pretty excited about it. It will allow you to watch movies, including 3D. It's going to be able to watch 3D movies, view your own pictures and videos, play video games. Basically, it's a TV for your face. And as a result, the stock was down a little bit. It did make new all-time highs before it did that. So kind of mixed reviews here. We don't know how it's going to play out. It's quite expensive. It does need to be very good for that price. Of course, there will be a lot of just Apple people that want to own it, so I'm sure it will have pretty decent sales as long as it's good. And then once it gets out there and people start to use it, if it is still good, then the sales will pick up and we'll see an increase on the top and bottom lines for Apple. But all of that is in the future, and we're not sure how that looks quite yet. Meta has been trying to do this for a while with mixed results. Disney was a part of the launch and said that Disney Plus would be available from launch on the Vision Pro. Unity stock was also named in the partnership and they rocketed higher. That's probably the better play off of this announcement. Just looking at it, it does look a little bit better than the Meta platform. It showed some images of what it would look like. It seems kind of odd that you can kind of see the space around you based on these images. You can see that here, playing video games on it. It's like a screen within open space. I don't know how I like that, but should be interesting. Probably use it at Best Buy. I'm probably not going to buy it. I think this is the most interesting part. I think this is what Meta's been trying to do for a while, where you can have multiple people kind of quote unquote in the room where you give presentations. I think that's quite useful on the business side, but we'll see how that plays out as well. And then from the learning perspective, you have 3D models that supposedly will be manipulatable. Overall, Apple has been working on this for a long time, so it's good to see what it looks like now. And like we talked about before, Meta has been working on a competitor. They've had their platforms out there for a while, but they're trying to release the Quest 3 later this year. Moving over to the economic calendar here, you can see everything was worse than expected, so economic factors continued to deteriorate, and we did see a little bit of a reaction from this in the markets. The IWM pulled back a little bit, but the Qs were still positive. Looking at tomorrow, basically nothing on the calendar here. Moving over to Max Payne for the Friday expiration. You can see we got quite a few more options today. We were down around 900,000 going into the weekend, and we jumped up to almost 1.2. Still put call ratio around 2. Highest call strike, 428. I would expect to close below that level this week. We did get a close right around the top of the puts last week and certainly could get a close in that same range. That would put us somewhere between 431 and 433. Certainly possible as well, but I definitely don't expect to close below 420. 422 to 424 makes sense. Somewhere in this range as well, which would be a little bit of a pullback from current levels. So those are the two areas I'm watching in this zone, and then at the top of the puts just because of the close that we saw last week. Moving over to the charts, starting with the S&Ps, you can see we threw a little bit of a peak through that level, and then we broke back down below it. So basically no change from yesterday's highs. We're back in this zone, trading between 421.85 and 428.58. At this point, you have to be looking for a little bit more of a pullback in tomorrow's session, in my opinion. Short-term momentum is bearish. RSI is pulling back. Volume at the end of day was quite weak. Not what you would want to see for that continuation. Doesn't mean that we're not going to get a continuation later in the week, potentially, or that this is going to pull back even that strongly, but at least a short-term pullback seems like it's possible, potentially down to the trend line around 423.37. Certainly seems possible. Daily momentum and RSI are still bullish, so keep an eye on that. You really want to see it get above that 428.59 level, and then continue this rally back into these upper ranges around 434. Moving over to the NASDAQ, very similar thesis. Threw a little wick in the morning and then pulled back. You can see that wick here on the daily chart. Does kind of look like an exhaustion wick. We're still at support, watching 53.24 as my support level. We tested that very closely in the pre-market. Rallied, didn't hit my major resistance. So we're still in this holding pattern just above my horizontal support. Not really looking at a breakout quite yet. Short-term momentum is slightly bearish. Daily momentum did step down here just a little bit, so certainly could be looking at a bit of a pullback tomorrow. Looks like a pullback style candle, and it was on the back of two fairly bullish candles. If we see a gap down, that would be quite bearish. Since we did gap into this range, you can see that here on the daily chart, slight gap into this range, gap down, pullback, that would be quite bearish. If we do get that kind of a move, we could see a pullback down to 346.87. That would be a big pullback down to that 144 EMA here on the hourly chart. Certainly a possibility based on the price action on the shorter term charts. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow, you can see the Russell threw a wick, pulled back on that economic data, hit my trend support here at 179.17, held that level, and then it looks like a pullback into a rally, watching for that 183.28 level. Momentum is still pulling back, so it could dip down a little bit further, maybe all the way down to 177. That would be interesting here, but really watching this 179.17 level. Dow, on the other hand, also hitting horizontal support, as well as VWAP and the 9 EMA here on the 4-hour chart. 335.91 is that level. If it holds, I'll be looking for a rally up to 339.11. If it breaks down, I have trend support sitting at about 333. Moving over to Apple and Tesla, you can see Apple threw a big wick, made that new all-time high up to 184.95, almost 185. And then we pulled back and closed right on horizontal support, 179.61, just a couple of cents below it. Looks like a pullback to the 9 EMA down at 176.33 makes sense. Got horizontal support at 176.13. Momentum did step down slightly. Volume was big on that bearish candle, so looks like a pullback on Apple is likely. Moving over to Tesla, doji candle at horizontal support. So this looks like an island reversal setup at this point. Gap up, doji. If we get the gap down tomorrow, that's going to be pretty bearish in my opinion. Momentum and RSI are both bullish, but RSI is super overbought here on Tesla on the daily chart. Moving over to Roku and Netflix. Roku continues to march higher. Netflix hit trend resistance and pulled back. Momentum is now bearish. RSI looks more bearish. You can see that dip below, retest, continuation lower. And at this point, I would expect this to pull back to that 392.92 level, which we did test on the pre-market here today before we got that rally in the morning session. Moving over to CHWY and Amazon. I want to highlight CHWY. They had great earnings, big volume, big push up above this previous high now. Kind of looks similar to Roku. You'd like to see this get above the 200 SMA, start to rally back into the 40s. That would be interesting. Been in that range before, and then we got a bigger breakdown. Now we're starting to get that rally back into the zone. This could get all the way up to 48, which would be a very solid move for CHWY. Off the back of good earnings seems possible. Amazon continues to march higher. Momentum kind of flat. RSI overbought. Volume fading here. And this is definitely a grind at this point, marching higher every single day. Moving over to consumer, discretionary, and staples. You can see staples wicked my next level. This is why having these levels is super important on your charts. You can see we touched it just barely at $74 and broke back down into the mid-range here. You'd like to see a higher low setup down at VWAP and the 21 EMA down around $73. Find that higher low versus this previous low at horizontal support. And then we start to see this rally back up. Certainly seems possible now on staples. Now that we've had a decent little rally, pullback, rally continuation, discretionary, chopping at horizontal resistance, 158.03, just below that level. Got very close to trend support and the 9 EMA. But momentum is definitely fading here. RSI crossing below that overbought line. Volume stepped down from Friday. Doesn't look nearly as strong with the price action that we saw. If this jumps above 158.03, then we're looking up to around 162. Certainly a possibility up there, but I would be careful going long until we are above resistance. Moving over to some of the top performers today, we got utilities getting above resistance, threw some wicks to the upside, got a rejection. Similar to staples, you would like to see this find support at 65.13 or the 9 EMA and start to curl upwards. Momentum definitely moving towards bullish. Didn't get a lot of volume today, which is interesting. You'd like to see that volume pick up as we start to rally, but definitely signs of life here on utilities. Moving over to gold, you can see we had a big red day on Friday, but a nice pullback today, up 0.6% to trend resistance. If it gets above here and we start to rally back into this range, that could be a continuation type rally. Momentum is moving back towards bullish. RSI got the break of the SMA, retested here and then rallied again. You'd like to see that get above the 50 line and start to rally back up to these previous highs. Certainly possible. You do have to be careful because this is a lower high setup now, still below the 21 EMA and this highest traded volume area. So a couple of resistance areas to watch on gold, but it did have a nice pop here today. Moving over to transports, we talked about this on the weekend video, potentially looking at a pullback from resistance back down to this midline. We are doing that. Now we're falling after hours below that level. At this point, it looks like we're probably going to pull back into this mid-range down around 225, maybe 226 in this zone here. Really, you would like to see this set up a higher low and then continue this rally if we are going to go higher. Momentum on the daily chart is still bullish. Volume is still quite high on transports. Look at this daily candle, definitely an inside day, not what you would like to see. Looks like a reversal candle setup. Moving over to the 2-year and the 10-year, you can see the 2-year tested that 450 level and we're back below it now. 10-year also tested 3.25 today, moved back lower. We're back into this mid-range now, so it looks a little bit more like a wedge type setup. You have a high and low, maybe we move sideways just below resistance for a bit. Similarly here on the 2-year, momentum has cooled down on both of these charts, and maybe this is our new range. Moving over to breadth. On the daily chart for the 50 and the 200, you can see the 50 looked a little bit weaker than the 200. Got an inside candle on the day, but you can see how powerful that Friday candle was. Got us all the way back into this range from down here. If this pulls back down to maybe the 21 EMA down at 43.50 or so, that would be interesting. And then we get a continuation higher, that would be nice. Moving over to the 200-day average, you can see we hovered right around the highs, right around this downtrend line. And at this point, I'm looking for a similar setup, slight pullback, bigger rally, and get the continuation on the longer term trend based on this 200-day average. Moving over to the dollar, you can see we got the continuation up to that horizontal resistance. Another wick on the day, ended up pulling back from that level back into this mid-range. So we're now stuck between this 103.64 and 104.41 area. Still looks bullish. Looks like we're setting up for a bit of a bull flag. Pull back down, establish this low, chop in this area, and then get a continuation. Seems very possible. Momentum, fading, RSI back below the SMA, but still bullish. Seems ideal for a bull flag type setup. Moving over to J&K and TLT, you can see J&K did pull back, threw some wicks to the downside, still holding just below the 200 SMA on the 4-hour chart. Momentum pulling back a little bit. Volume was okay, not too bad. RSI pushing back into bullish territory. Really, you want to see this break above the trend line. If that happens, that should be a good confirmation of some more bullish price action. TLT, similar thesis, tested that trend line, pulled back a little bit. You want to see this get above that level and the 102.50 level. Then we get a push back up to 103.70. Seems very possible. RSI still hovering around 50. You want to see it get above there. Still below the SMA. So this could be a higher low setup versus this previous high. Then we break back down, make a new lower low down at this previous low. That would be interesting. J&K looking more bullish. TLT looks kind of neutral. Moving over to the MOVE index and the VIX, you can see the VIX chopping at horizontal support as well as trend support. Multiple levels supporting the VIX here. Seems interesting. Maybe we get a little pop back up to around 16. That would be quite interesting. Seems possible. MOVE index continues to break down and move lower. Momentum bearish. RSI also bearish. VIX showing a little bit of a higher low setup on RSI. Momentum moving towards bullish. Again, seems like we're setting up for a little bit of a pullback on the VIX. Okay, up around 60 bucks. I don't know if that was the actual net returns, but should have been positive. You can see we got crushed a little bit on that IWM move down. It's pretty aggressive. We're going to get assigned at those 180 puts. Sold some 180 calls for tomorrow to help compensate for that a little bit. Got $80 for both of those. Not terrible. We'll continue to wheel that. Looks okay. Looking at the Qs, sold those covered calls from yesterday. Ended up rolling that 355 out here for another $1.34 credit for the 2 of those. So that's a nice $250 profit for tomorrow. Either way, if the stock goes down, then we'll have those calls to help cover. I sold some 353 puts in a small profit as well. See how that plays out. If it starts to pull back a little bit, I'll probably pull those puts and just play the covered call position to help protect myself to the downside while still collecting a little bit of a credit here on the NASDAQ. Overall, slightly bullish, but playing some defense. Let me know down in the comments section what you think of Apple's new VR headset. Are you going to run out and buy it? Or are you going to wait until it gets on sale for like $1 because nobody wants to pay $3,500 for a VR headset that's basically a mobile TV on your face? I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it's the newest cool thing and everybody will have them in a couple years. See how it plays out. Otherwise, like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video. Make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.